We're live. Thank you all very much for joining us today. It is Tuesday, a little bit after 1 p.m. Central. We found them. Dave Lee's back. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. Doing well. Yeah. How are you doing?
Good, man. You've been a busy man. I saw you. You spoke with Emmett yesterday. You've been working really hard on this app that's meant to teach languages. That's leveraging AI as well. It sounds awesome. I know you've been working hard at it. From my standpoint, I remember you went on your trip
Yeah.
with the big RV trip. Then you shared the story about you fasting and how you almost freaking died or passed out or something. And then you're like, I'm working on this thing. You disappear. And then people are like, oh my God, you have him on your channel on the panel tomorrow. Do you have him hostage? What happened?
Yeah,
Tell
it's
us all about what you've been up to, dude.
yeah, it's funny. Typically I'm very focused on something, right? And typically it's been my family kind of raising my kids and also investing and monitoring my investments. And I kind of share my thoughts, right, with others on my channel. The past 3 months have been very different because I feel that there's been a tidal wave shift in artificial intelligence. And it's the biggest technological change of our lifetime, perhaps in the history of the world. And it's leading to some crazy opportunities that are going to radically transform society. And for me, it's a no-brainer to actually see what you can do with AI. See what kind of product or service or something that you can offer with AI. And so my focus has kind of shifted toward that the past few months. YouTube, as you know, like each video, it takes so much energy and focus. You have to have the title, the thumbnail, the content, upload, editing, all this stuff. And so I wanted to conserve my focus and energy for this new language learning app we're developing. But yeah, things are coming along great, and I'm having a blast, and it's fun. It's fun creating stuff, and it's fun, having a unlimited kind of possibilities open in the future. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still wanting to do more videos. It's just that I think there's a conflict, where
Sure.
when I put my maker hat on, like I'm in it like all
Yeah.
day from morning to evening. And any distraction is like it's taking me away from making this app. But hopefully maybe when it gets closer to release, maybe I'll have some more time. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to.
Awesome, man. How do you have a sort of thought about when that thing will be ready? Because I'd love to sort of see it come to fruition. Do you have a thought as when it's
Yeah, I mean, the problem right now is the language learning space is so competitive. So you release an app, no one cares about it. No one knows about it.
mm,
It's if it's not significantly better, like multiple times better than the best app out there, you
mm,
basically don't have much chance, and
mm.
companies will spend, tons of money just on marketing, etc. So it's going to be a uphill battle. And my strategy is we might actually do a limited more release on our target audience, which might not be kind of the mainstream folks. So we'll see.
Mm.
But hopefully we'll get to some early beta testing in the next few months. But we might do it overseas, and we might do it with children or young people,
That's
and kind
awesome.
of focus on more of a target audience. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love to pick your brain more about this a little bit later on in the video because you talk about how it's geared towards getting as much of the developing nations sort of equipped with the proper tools to be as successful as humanly possible, especially in an age where all of us are going to be able to talk to each other with the internet and sort of get to work with each other and sort of focusing around those main languages that can really help connect all of us together. And so I think that's super admirable. And I'm going to pick your brain about this. Uh, I don't know, maybe this video, next one, but I just
Yeah.
think it's so
Yeah.
cool that you're focused on that, and it's amazing, dude. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, AI is like, I think it's coming to age, and there's opportunities where we could use it to actually transform society in positive ways. And one of that is the whole, rich poor gap, the whole global um, disparity of of economies and standards of living. And the way you do it, I think, is through education and through opportunity. And the internet opens up a whole new world, but people just don't have access. It's not just they don't have internet, they don't have the language, they don't have the skills. And so once we can open that up for more people, yeah, I think we can see some positive change.
Yeah, I'm about to change this title to "Let's talk about Dave's app" because I'm so interested right now. I really am.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm trying so hard. Okay, so let's do this. Let's touch on Investor Day for a little bit, and then let's come back to the AI discussion, and the app as well, because there's just so much there to talk about. But Tesla's Investor Day. So
yes,
tomorrow, it looks like 3 p.m. Central is when the live stream is going to start from Tesla. In case you're not aware and you're watching this, we're going to be hosting a watch party at Clive Bar in downtown Austin. It's going to start. Doors open at 2 p.m. We'll have a pre-Investor Day thing. Then we're also going to stream Investor Day into the bar. And then from 5:30 up through God knows when, we'll have a bunch of panels. And then Dave's going to join me on a panel around 8 o'clock Central tomorrow evening with Pierre Ferragu, Dan Ives, Sandy Monroe, Sam Chorus from ARC. And I'm missing one person. Oh my goodness, how could
Rob.
Rob Maurer? How could
Yeah,
I forget Rob? My
yeah.
God, I'm a terrible person. But 8 o'clock tomorrow, come join us at Clive if you're around. If you can't get a ticket, definitely come and watch Investor Day from Clive Bar. If you are an Investor Day, come after. We'll be there. We'll all be hanging out. And maybe we'll see Sandy dance shirtless again like he did last time. But your thoughts around Investor Day, Dave? Obviously, you've been a
Yeah.
long-time Tesla investor. You know the story really well. Where's your head at?
Yeah, so this past week, I actually been reflecting a bit back on Tesla's history, and I remember back in like 2013 or 14, I was writing some posts on Tesla Motors Club, and the theory was Tesla is betting their future on this Gen 3 car, they called it at that time, 30, um, basically $35,000 car, like a BMW 3 Series competitor.
Mhm.
And Elon was saying that they could possibly sell like 300 or 500,000 of these cars in 2020. And that people were basically debating whether or not that's possible and all this stuff. And for me, I felt the likelihood was super high because the Model S was so much better than anything else out there. They just needed to shrink the car, right, make it more affordable. And my thoughts were already on the next stage, which was Gen 4. And so
Mm.
my thesis or hypothesis back in 2014-ish was Tesla would likely be successful with Model 3 or their third gen, and that would set them up for their Gen 4 car. And their Gen 4 car would be this cheap kind of Corolla competitor type of, that class, and would set them up to become the largest auto manufacturer in the world. And I look back on that and I got so much heat and flack from that because people just
Yes.
didn't. They thought that the Gen 3 car was gonna fail or was like even early Model S owners. A lot of them thought that the chance of bankruptcy was quite high and that they would have a car that there would be no company behind it.
Yeah.
Um, so and then as we enter into this tomorrow's announcement, basically what Tesla is saying is they're saying, hey, we've got this Model 3, Model Y, the platform, but that's not enough. And here's our next big platform, our next big push that will take us over the next 10 years, right, of ramping and rollout. And this is the platform that will take us to become the highest volume automaker in the world, right? This is the kind of turning point. And Tesla is announcing this tomorrow, right? And they've actually held back a lot of their signs and clues. Like Elon has slipped a little bit talking about their next generation vehicle platform, but generally speaking, they haven't really addressed it, saying what's after Model 3 and Model Y in detail, right? And so tomorrow is the next chapter. And this is actually significant because, Elon has been talking about this Model 3 platform since like 2013 or 14, and even before that, actually. And so Tesla's been built on the whole, 35,000 whatever dollar Model 3, Model Y dream. And that has led us all the way to 2023. And so the question is, okay, what's after this? And so Tesla is set up to show us and a super ambitious plan to drop the cost of the car into the next level below, this entry level luxury sedan, which is the Model 3 and then the Model Y, into the more economy class cars. But the Trojan horse, I see in this is that Tesla is not an economy car maker, right? It's as if you had, you know, let's say, uh, BMW or Mercedes, offer a $20,000 car that was as good as, like, almost as good as their 3 Series. It's like there's no competition against a Corolla
Mhm.
versus a Mercedes. But even more so, Tesla, bringing down their cost of their cars into their next category, let's say the 20 to $30,000 category, it's completely unfair because they're dealing with these economy cars that have completely compromised on everything about the car, right? It's all about costs. If you drive a Corolla, it's like you can't compare it with, you know, a Model 3 or even a BMW or Mercedes or whatever entry-level class sports sedan. And so that's what I think the bigger picture is I don't think there's any chance um, for these economy ICE cars anymore. Like that's what the announcement is about tomorrow. It's about the end of the ICE economy car. It's not going to go away overnight. It's not like a quick
Right.
thing. It's going to take many years over time. But as Tesla ramps the next generation vehicle platform and they get that sweet spot, 20, 30,000, um, it's like, yeah, it's really the beginning of
It's
the
gonna get
end, I
weird.
think.
It's gonna get
Yeah.
weird. Yeah, it's so, I mean, it's you bringing this up sort of raises this question that I did a video on this, I think, last week, where if you think about that pricing level, at least in the United States, if I use the United States as an example, name me a car that costs less than $30,000 that's actually compelling to drive or compelling to own. That is not just a point A to point B transportation system that is going to basically, like you said, just prioritize cost. You don't get any extra features with it, really, that I can think of. Again, I could be wrong, that I can think of. And people, I think, have gotten very used to the fact that they could drive well, I'm going to buy a Corolla because I just need something to get me from point A to point B reliably and cheaply. That's why I'm getting a Honda Civic, and they're great for what they do. They're phenomenal. But what are two things that are weaknesses in that sort of thing? So the consumer, you don't really get something that I would argue is compelling, that can bring sort of that love and joy that I think a lot of Tesla owners agree on, that the cars bring to them. That's sort of very unique with that experience. And then two, the manufacturers don't make any money on those cars. They make all their money on SUVs and pickups. And so they have no incentives to make these cars better, because as soon as they do, they price themselves out of competition, or they end up losing more money, or not no longer breaking even on those vehicles. And so I think as long as Tesla can keep a semblance of driving dynamics that are close to or equal to an EV, which obviously they will because it's an electric vehicle, and you compare that to a Civic or a Toyota Corolla, and you ask somebody to drive both cars, it's going to be very obvious which one's going to be better. You're going to have the screen for infotainment. You're obviously going to have the safety record. You're going to have access to the supercharger network. You're not going to have any maintenance. You're not going to be filling up with gas, which costs more than electricity, right? So you can start seeing how these different things start to stack up against each other. But I guess the big question becomes, is Tesla actually going to be able to come out with a, say, $25,000 to $30,000 car that is compelling? And from what you just walked through, it seems like you're quite convinced that's the case. Is that true? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think the rationale is actually how Tesla designs their cars, where it's not an option to release something mediocre that's like a Corolla.
Hmm.
That's just not an option. Like Tesla doesn't, consider that. It's got to be a great car. And so what Tesla considers a great car is not an typical economy car. It's and that's the other thing is a lot of people thought the Model 3 early back in the day, let's say 2014, 15, they thought that it would be it would be an economy car in a sense of its trim and its feel. And I remember I was like, no, that's not the strategy here. Tesla's not trying to make an economy car. They're actually going after, right, this BMW 3 Series market, that entry level sports sedan market, and it will be a luxury car. And there were actually debate early on back in the day. It was like, well, what if Tesla services these economy, let's say Model 3 cars with in their service centers together with Model S and X's, it'll be a big downgrade of reputation. You'll have these
Mhm.
cheap economy cars next to these luxury S and
I
X
remember that.
cars, and owners will feel like, what the heck, you know? It's like our luxury brand is shot. And I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what Tesla, their approach is. It's like, no, the 3 and Y, they were meant to be, luxury cars. That's why Tesla services S, X, 3, and Y, it doesn't downgrade their brand by having 3 and Y. It's because they have standards. And here's the thing is, I think this next generation car, it's not going to be this like cheap economy feeling car, right? It's going to
Mhm.
feel like a Tesla. And that's the biggest kind of knockout punch that I don't think people are expecting.
Mm.
Is this is a real Tesla car. It's not like a cheap, separate brand, like a Yaris brand, or I don't know, whatever brand,
Right.
that like
Yeah,
they're
the
not making
Rio, the
a
Kia
cheaper
Rio.
brand.
Yeah.
That's not Tesla's MO. They're keeping their standards high, and that's why, yeah, I don't think anyone in the auto market in terms of OEMs, they're not prepared for this. I think there's a misunderstanding of what Tesla's about. They think, Tesla's more like them. They think that Tesla's gonna, you know, cheapen the car and make like a Corolla, right? And that's the thing. Tesla's not gonna make a Corolla, right? Yes, they will make a luxury car in the $20,000 or $30,000 price range, but it will be luxury, and you can't compare it with anything else, right? In that price
Yeah.
range.
Yeah. So are you confident that they'll actually show this vehicle tomorrow, or do you think they'll show plans? How are you thinking about this?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's to their advantage to release the design of the vehicle. I think it's an investor day, and I think if they just show their um, the back end, the infrastructure behind, right, this car, meaning you have the design of the car, but you've got the design of the factory, right, the machines, the how it's manufactured and put together. Um, And so the floor space, how much CapEx it takes. And I think that's what Elon was hinting at in the last couple earnings calls. Basically, like half the cost in terms of Tesla's cost, like twice the output, of a factory, and I mean half the factory space. All that translates to is like it's going to be much cheaper to build in terms of building new factories because you'll have half the factory space, double the output, all this stuff. I don't know if Tesla will really be able to achieve those exact marks because I think they're super crazy ambitious. Um, but I'd rather that Tesla tries to go for these crazy, marks. I think that's the goal at least that Tesla has. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that the focus is how will Tesla drop their costs so much? Let's say up to half. How will Tesla drop the factory space by up to half? How will they increase the output, by double? All these, how are they going to do it? It's basically a bunch of problem solving and engineering. So it's like, okay, we have this problem. Here's what we've done to to radically, shrink the factory space or increase output, et cetera. Yeah, so you're gonna have probably a massive decrease in the amount of robots, of welding robots, all that stuff. A, a, a massive shortening of the actual general assembly time it takes to manually put stuff in the car. Um, this is going to require a massive complete redesign of how a car is built. So, I would expect a lot of gigacasting or machines in terms of involvement and a redesign of how the actual car is built in the end, assembled, right? And the amount of human labor involved too. All this is going to be radically different. So Tesla wants to show here is our game plan. Right? Here's how we did it in terms of the
Mm.
design. And I think Tesla is probably at least 75% done with this, in terms of the whole thing. I would imagine by the end of this year, they'll finish up all their designs and probably shoot for production maybe second half of next year. That's my guess.
Mm.
I'd love to find out more details, but the question mark I have is when like is this going to be a robo taxi only vehicle platform, or is
Right.
this going to be something people can drive as well? Um, yeah, is Tesla gonna sell this stuff? I mean, are they gonna take control in terms of having their own robotaxi fleet? Or can people buy it and lease it? Or I don't know, just so many
Yeah.
questions regarding,
Yeah, for
why is this
sure.
a
Because
robotaxi vehicle platform and not just a cheaper car platform, right? And Tesla's been very intentional to make sure that people understand this is a robo-taxi vehicle platform, not just
Right.
a cheaper car vehicle platform. So yeah, interesting.
I I remember when you and I spoke sometime last year. I think you sort of put this in like this little nugget in my brain where it's likely that this whatever this is that it could be a robo taxi, like one that's purpose built for just hauling people around, optimized for comfort for all passengers, no steering wheels, no pedals, nothing like that. But then you're also there also seems to be another solution where it is going to be that Corolla disruptor, like that just destroyer. And the question between how those two platforms play with each other could be the strategy that Tesla embarks on. And this is sort of what goes through my head, and I love to pick your brain on this. So I'll make a statement. You tell me if I'm thinking about this correctly or incorrectly. To me, it doesn't make any sense that Tesla focuses strictly on mass producing a robotaxi from the start because there are still hurdles they have to go through. I mean, you're seeing the stuff with NHTSA quote unquote recalls that are happening in the United States is really the only region where they have full self driving. It's still not feature complete, and we're in 2023. It's been delayed multiple times, which is fine. I'm not necessarily saying this is a bad thing. I'm just saying this is the state of where we are, and so if Tesla's really going to be investing a lot of time into scaling production for the next, say, 7 to 10 years, starting now, then banking your entire supply chain and production capacity on this robotaxi thing being mass adopted globally in the next 3 years seems like a very risky move, because then what that implies is that you're going to build up a ton of idle capacity or idle inventory on something that you're trying to get to 20 million cars per year by 2030. And so you need something in the middle that will take those batteries and whatever you're building and sell it to people so that you're not stuck with either the capacity or the capacity to produce or the inventory. And that's where I think this cheaper, still drivable, like you and I can sit down and drive it around, compact car comes in that will share a lot of the same chassis, drivetrain, battery manufacturing process that the robotaxi takes that is going to use. But Tesla has sort of designed it in a way so that they can shift into the robotaxi once they feel like they've reached a point where they can start mass selling this vehicle. Tell me how, if I'm thinking about this correctly, what are the weaknesses, the strengths? Let me know where your head's at.
Yeah. No, I think you're seeing it, yeah, correctly. Like there is a risk if you go all in on a robotaxi next gen platform that can only build robotaxis without a steering wheel, hypothetically. And if FSD is late in rolling out the robotaxi capability, then you've got all these factories and expenses and things that you have factories that aren't building the cars yet or many cars because the technology is late. One idea. What do you think? What do you think of this idea? What if Tesla makes the robotaxi? It's a robotaxi. Okay, it's okay. Let's say hypothetically, Tesla says, "Forget it. We're not making human-driven cars anymore." Right? It's like we're moving on from that in terms of their next gen, and we're making robotaxi. These robotaxis don't have steering wheels and pedals, whatever, because we're 100% confident we're going to solve FSD, right? But for the first few years, we're going to have a driver module that goes on into the robotaxi for the time being, right? Meaning this driver module will fit like kind of into this like kind of space where and you allow the driver to drive and do everything it needs to do. Basically, and we're only going to do it until our FSD gets basically mature and complete. That might be an interesting idea because that aligns well with this idea that it is a robotaxi next gen platform, right? It's about robotaxi, but it also can solve perhaps the interim problem of we don't know when FSD is going to be mature and ready, and there's going to be huge robotaxi rollout, so people can buy these cars. But who knows? I mean, that might be engineering wise too complicated, to have uh, this extra module that goes into like the car with, and that's a lot
Yeah.
of parts, and you're talking about steering wheel and controls and pedals and all this stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean that is the big question. Kind of is how all in is Tesla going with robotaxi in terms of are they just going to eat the risk of having idle capacity if FSD doesn't come quickly, or do they have something up their sleeves? I think they have something up their sleeves. They're not reckless. So yeah, we'll see how what they show. I think tomorrow.
Yeah, where my head goes with that is if there it is a say a robo taxi with a driver module added in, my biggest thing is like okay, sort of what you talked about is the engineering effort, but like safety regulations, is NHTSA gonna allow something like that? Like how does that play into the impact? Because you think about a robo taxi, in theory, they'll be designing these things that would have whatever NHTSA's definition is of a safe driverless car without pedals and wheels in the, by 2028 or whenever that regulation comes out. And I would think Tesla would try their best to engineer that car based on those regulations. That might be, I don't know if they're going to be different from cars today or not. There probably will be a lot of similarities because they're going to be sharing the same road. So it just becomes like this will be a perfect question for Sandy, right? Or Corey from or anybody at
Yeah,
those geniuses at Monroe. Be like, okay, so is it better to just create a manufacturing process that allows you to modulate between the compact car and the robotaxi, where maybe the amount of effort and change you need is only say 20% of the total effort and change that you need to do with the entire process, versus focusing on the robotaxi platform and then adding something on top of it. And that to me sounds more complex somehow. I don't know why. It's because you're like forcing one thing on top of the other
yeah,
versus allowing the manufacturing processes, you know, uh, um, adjusting the manufacturing processes to actually allow you to build a completely different car. And it sort of like ties to Elon Musk's comments around how long-term Tesla's true, call it the moat or differentiator, is manufacturing. Like this is really what they're going to be extremely good at, is manufacturing. And so that's why my head goes to, okay, so whatever machines or robots they have figured out, they'll just be extremely good at going from this version of a car to this version of a car. And they could be two completely different form factors, but it's still 80% of the effort and time and value or whatever that we've put into that process. We just need small tweaks to shift it from one place to another. And maybe that's something to learn from Cybertruck. I have no idea. And that's
yeah,
why tomorrow is going to be so fascinating, because when they say Gen 3 platform, then we should see Tesla's manufacturing expertise come to light.
yeah,
It's not just single piece castings and, single structure battery packs or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
So as you're speaking, I had this idea. What if
Yeah.
Tesla did something where tomorrow they announce this robotaxi platform, their next gen? They don't really mention a compact car, a consumer compact car. They just talk about robotaxi and all this stuff, um, and they give the whole back end, rationale, infrastructure, all that stuff. And later, how about later on, they reveal a compact drivable car.
At a later date,
Later,
you mean?
yeah, like let's say
Hmm.
maybe I don't know, maybe like in a year or so,
Hmm.
Meaning, for example, let's say hypothetically Tesla intends to do a robotaxi and a compact car. Let's say on the same platform, but it'll be different. But Tesla just talks only about the robotaxi tomorrow. Because if they talk about this compact, drivable consumer car, what's the benefit of really talking about that? You've got the whole Osborne effect. Some people stretching to buy a Model 3 or Model Y, say, "Oh, I'll just wait for that," right? So Tesla doesn't have to talk about that. They could just only talk about the robotaxi, and then in a year or so, right, when they're closer to wanting to release the actual product and ready to take pre-orders, then they have an event and announce this compact drivable car. Right. And so the downside is you have a year of people complaining, right? Saying,
Speculating.
oh my gosh, like robotaxi, is that going to be enough? Like, or when is it going to come out? Like everyone's going to be upset
My
and stuff.
comments are going
But
to be a disaster.
yeah, yeah. But to me, that's something I wouldn't rule that possibility out, actually, Yeah.
What comes to mind there is like I feel like somebody at Investor Day is going to ask the question because they're going to have an hour long Q&A. If they do that, I mean, somebody's going to ask, why don't you do like wouldn't you just put that on a compact car, And I'm guessing, Elon and Tesla would have to keep, re-saying, yeah, but when we're ready, we'll announce it. When we're ready, we'll announce it. Or if we change our plans, we'll announce it. So, yeah, I wonder,
Yeah.
and this is
I
why,
mean,
like, this is, go ahead.
so
Yeah,
it could
please.
be a backup plan actually. So let's say Elon could say, "Oh, we don't need that compact, whatever drivable car, because FSD is almost ready to go mainstream, right?
Yeah, but come on.
Robotaxi." So what he does is he goes, "That's his default, but his backup is
uh,
this compact drivable car announced next year." You know,
yeah,
which in most people's like mind, that's the most realistic, probability.
right.
But he still wants to perhaps, uphold this possibility that FSD is going to be good enough,
I see that. I see that.
ultra fast, where he doesn't need to release a drivable compact car. So why even talk about it right now? Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
see.
I could see that. I could see that. I do wonder if in a way, if Elon and Tesla do focus, like do release a compact car that's drivable, it's like, I want to say admitting defeat in a way that says, hey, the FSC is not coming as soon as I thought. But it's kind of like, to your point, maybe it will add some sort of fuel to the fire that says, oh, see, we told you full self driving is not going to be ready. You see what happened. But then what will end up happening in the other side is that Tesla will get to 20 million cars per year. Like you'll just have that happen instead of them driving themselves. Everybody will be driving them, and eventually they'll drive themselves. It's fascinating, man.
Yeah, yeah,
I really, the fact that they added it to the announcement on January 2nd is really, for me, it's so interesting that they chose to add it to the announcement. They explicitly highlighted
yeah.
Gen 3 platform. And how much of that do you think was because of the noise and the craziness that was happening around that time, with like the stock dropping to 100 and Elon, a lot of people, this is up for debate obviously, but having divisive tweets on Twitter and stuff like that. How much of that do you think was in response to that, and how much of this do you really think it's Tesla's ready to showcase the Gen 3? And we truly have something.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, I don't know if it's a clear-cut answer. I mean, we don't have the internal messages, of Tesla. But on one side, I would imagine Elon's been thinking about Master Plan 3 for quite a while. They're working on this robotaxi vehicle platform for quite a while. They're ready to hold an event anytime. Like they know their stuff. They've got a lot of stuff that hasn't been shared yet in detail by Tesla. And so on one hand, I think, yeah, this stuff would have been shared anyways at some point. But perhaps, there was some extra kind of reason to make the announcement, and to hold it maybe in March. But then that's the thing; it could have been held earlier. It could have held last year with Elon just sharing Master Plan Part 3. He could have had a Master Plan Part 3 Investor Day in fall, before, let's say, Tesla stock price. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's a clear cut answer, exactly how it
Mhm.
came about, but it does seem like there's some extra stuff. Like, for example, the last, I think, big thing was with the past couple AI days. You had Battery Day and a couple AI days. So you had, the backdrop set for what Tesla's doing on the technology side, but you didn't really have the backdrop set for what Tesla's doing on the manufacturing side and on the factory ramping side, and that picture. And so to me, it's a great kind of complement to the Battery Day, the AI Day, and then you've got this, I'll call it like maybe massive scale, day, investor day. And
Mhm.
those three put together present, I think, a more complete picture, of what Tesla's up to.
Got it. So it's almost like giving context to the things that they've been working on that's fundamental. Here's the context as to how we're going to bring those things to market. Here are the things that are going to be presented. My gut tells me that it's going to have like a similar format to those days, where it's an hour and a half long keynote. If we look at the
Yeah.
sort of presentation, I highly doubt it's going to be Elon by himself talking for an hour and a half. He's going to bring up a bunch of team members we probably never met before, and he's going to display the sort of how deep the talent roster is, and
Yeah.
it's almost like when we looked at the AI and battery days, there was like these different divisions sort of that were focused on those specific technologies that they're working on. And now if we're thinking about scale being its own technology, so if AI is a technology, battery is a technology, I don't know if scale is a technology, but let's just assume it's around because it's getting its own day, right?
Yeah.
So what are the divisions that go into that? Raw materials, refining, picking locations, building out facilities, platforms, right? And you kind of start conceptualizing those things. Um, it's going to be fascinating to see what's going to be discussed. What are other things that come to mind when you think about Investor Day? Do you think they
Yeah.
have to announce Gigafactory Mexico, right? I mean, that's got to come to mind, right?
Possibly. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
news from today. The Mexican
yeah,
president, Alamo, he actually announced in a press conference or
hmm
in a Q&A that Tesla is going to build a factory in Monterey. So we might get that. I think the structure I look at tomorrow is two main topics. One is kind of the materials problem. And the way I picture it is Elon basically cast this crazy vision and say, oh, we're going to need crazy amount of materials for the amount of terawatt hours we need. Um, and it's not enough what we're doing. And so he's going to break it down into like three sections or something, or three problems they need to solve with, let's say, mining and refining, et cetera, and cathode, anode, whatever. And he's going to show exactly what they're going to do to fix and to solve these problems, right? Um, and then on the manufacturing side, this will be kind of the second part, and he'll basically say, "Hey, you know, we need to um, scale to make cars renewable, sustainable. Model 3, Model Y is not enough." And so he's going to show how there are certain problems they need to solve to bring down the cost of the car radically. And he'll show like, hey, we need to increase the output of the factory line. And here's all the technologies, design decisions, way we did it. We need to shrink the size of the factory floor space by half. And here's how we did it, how we're doing it. And then we need to shrink the costs of goods and all this stuff, and here's how we're doing it. And he'll just kind of lay out, basically materials, point one, two, and three, the big problems, how we're solving them, and the goals that they have, and manufacturing, the same thing, 3 points and the goals and how they're going to basically, it's going to be like, kind of like battery day, right? So we're going to
yeah.
do half the cost, whatever, double output, all this stuff. And this is going to allow us to create these cars that will scale, right, to 10 plus million, et cetera. I think that's kind of the general format I expect out of the investor day. Hour and a half is kind of short, actually. It's not in a sense like you have 3 hours. You're not gonna have all these presentations. It's kind of compact, and that's where I think maybe they're going to focus just on a few topics. Yeah.
I see. I see. Yeah, it's funny you bring up the Battery Day example. Was it? Do you remember if the 4680 was unveiled before Battery Day, or was that unveiled
No,
in
that was
Battery Day?
battery day. Yeah.
Okay, the
Yeah.
4680. So I'm wondering if like the Gen 3 platform is going to have, because they say platform is going to be like a similar type thing. Is again, they didn't have like the stupid battery on stage. Like, hey, look at this thing. They had a bunch of like, hey, this is how we're going to do it. Here's the
Exactly.
manufacturing process. Okay, got it. Okay, so that
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
helps
that's
to
how I look at it.
conceptualize it.
Yeah, yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're it's similar in the battery day in the sense that they have these goals that they're needing to reach, like just like 4680, and they have a plan to do it.
Hmm.
And this is how they're doing it. But it's gonna, I mean, the timeline is probably a little shorter than AI, a battery day, because they're already like finishing the designs, of the car, of the manufacturing. I think it's this day is showing that Tesla, it's basically they've worked on the design of the car. They probably already have like close to final version. They've worked on all the manufacturing, how the factory, all the machines, the whole processes. They've done this for over a year probably. And they're
Hmm.
getting close to this point where they're finalizing. They're getting a place closer to finalization. And that's what they're going to share tomorrow, basically. You know,
Gotcha.
here's where we're at. Yeah.
Gotcha. Do you think this is a China like for this whatever this platform is? Do you think it's a region specific first? Do you think it's global? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the mystery thing is China seems to have their own design center, and um, Elon respects that there's different needs that each region might have, and so it's possible Tesla China comes up with their own compact car. I wouldn't be surprised. And the second thing is China is Tesla China is behind with FSD compared to the US. They just aren't prioritizing it as much right now. So yeah, why make a robotaxi compact car for China when people are driving there right now? And so, yeah, I don't know if I doubt if Tesla will even talk about it at all. A
Mhm.
Tesla China car. It's something maybe Tesla China has an announcement for, later when they need to. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, end of this
Yeah.
year, early next year. Yeah.
Okay. What about Tesla Energy? That's something that a lot of people have been speculating about. It seems like with the Megapack 2 XL that they
Yeah.
had a video earlier this year where they unveiled they're going to try to get, I think, 10,000 units per year. I think it was somewhere between 8,000 to 10,000 units per year. It seems to be a sleeping giant that a lot of people seem to be, especially on the institutional side. Folks like Gary Black and a few others are starting to sort of perk up their ears to it. Like, oh, looks like there is potential here. Do you think that gets covered tomorrow? And your overall thoughts on Tesla Energy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it gets covered in a minor way. I don't think it's the big focus per se. I mean, I think Elon will address it, and you'll have great, big goals for Tesla Energy, by 2030 or in 10 years. Um, um, I think though the reality is like you can't do everything well. Like you've got humanoid robots, you got FSD, you got manufacturing of cars and factories and all this stuff. You also have Tesla Energy, and Tesla won't per se, I think, admit that Tesla Energy isn't, a top like the top priority because I mean there's no reason to say that. But the reality is that cars are, top. FSD is top, right? Even humanoid robot goes up there. Um, Tesla Energy is important long term, but it's long term meaning that like I look at Tesla Energy as it's fundamentally a different problem where it's not so much high tech, meaning you don't have AI and these, you don't need, 10,000 software engineers and all this data and all this stuff to make it. It's not complex. You don't need this, crazy network and brand and you're not dealing with finicky consumers either. It's a rather straightforward product and you need a lot of cheap battery cells, right?
Mm,
That's kind of the key. And it needs to be reliable, right? And so I look at it as Tesla's going to feed all of their extra cells that they can get to support Tesla Energy. Um, and that's how they're going to grow it over time. So it's always going to be kind of the second priority, like the cars and FSD, humanoid robots, all this stuff is first priority. Tesla Energy gets whatever cells Tesla can give it, right? Without sacrificing the first priority. And in that sense, yeah, I think Tesla Energy is going to grow a lot and it's going to be a huge sleeper. I mean, in terms of people are going to wake up to it more and more over time. But it's something that's going to take time to ramp, um, to make you know, a huge numbers difference, in my opinion. Um, and like some people get excited about Tesla Energy right now. I think it's fine. It's just that again, when it push comes to shove, Tesla will prioritize the cars. They're just
mm.
higher margin, more impact. I mean, I don't say more impact. It's just better use of their cells at this point. But yeah, I mean, it seems like Tesla's, especially what's happening right now is Model 3 and Model Y, you're not seeing this huge jump in production or demand in 2023, right? Because think about it, they ended, you know, um, uh, 2022 with production that was like, you know, upwards closer to 2 million. Um, and so they're not gonna, they don't need to jump that production rate double this year. It's going to kind of flatline in a sense, maybe grow incrementally quarter by
Yeah.
quarter. And so they have a lot of cells. So actually, I think this year is a great year for Tesla Energy to grow and to see what Tesla can do. So um, yeah, yeah, I think it's a good business. It's just for me, it's like it's a long term thing,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I think what's interesting about the energy part is that um, I had Matt Smith on, Emmett's counterpart from Good
yeah,
Soil, and we discussed the sort of this margin potential of Tesla Energy long term. Tesla's getting these IRA tax credits for battery cell manufacturing in the U.S., which is obviously going to be a huge boon. not just for the car business, for the energy business as well. You think about just how behind the times most grids are globally. I don't know if there's one good, extremely good grids anywhere in the world. I don't know, but I haven't been around the world much either, so I don't want to speak out of complete ignorance here. But it seems like there's just a lot of opportunity to capitalize on a market. But I think I agree with you that I think for the next 3 to 5 years, energy is still going to be this growing giant. That's going to be. I mean, it's already adding to the bottom line. It's low percentage point margin, but it's 13%, 12%, I think it was in Q4, and it's literally just a cabinet with batteries, and you figure out how to get that cabinet from point A to point B. There's more complexities, obviously, but relative to car manufacturing, it doesn't seem that much more complex, or relatively less complex than car manufacturing.
Yeah.
So
And
it's yeah.
yeah, and the other thing is the sales process for Tesla Energy, especially mega packs and these bigger projects.
Yeah,
It's long, you know. It's a
true.
very bureaucratic process. It's hard to scale at will, meaning it takes time to go through the sales processes for all these projects. And so even if Tesla wanted to scale faster, it just um, yeah, there's somewhat of a bottleneck in terms of sales, and that's why it will grow. It will substantially grow. Yeah, the IRA credits are interesting too. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Yeah, I'm a fan. And yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Um, so tomorrow, let's play a little game. You think that there's going to be are people going to be pleasantly surprised, or are people going to be disappointed? What do you think is going to come out of it?
Um, I think it depends on the person. If you're gonna get excited about Tesla going into details of how they're, shrinking or lowering the cost of the vehicle and increasing output and all the details, kind of like Battery Day. If you got excited about watching Battery Day, then you'll get excited about tomorrow, I think.
Hmm.
If you didn't get excited about Battery Day, then I think this tomorrow's presentation is not going to be for you. That's kind of my take on it, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it, got it. Yeah, what I couldn't help but because again that Gen 3 platform verbiage that they put in the announcement to me just had put so many cogs turning and gears turning in my head, and I've tried so hard to internally temper my expectations when I create my content. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be the case, blah blah blah. But if Tesla were to kind of show or unveil or talk about this sort of lower level or lower price car around 25,000 or so, it could just think about what that does to the car market. And you and I spent a bunch of time earlier in the interview talking about the implications of that. So it's extremely hard for me to not be like, oh my God, please, please show
Right.
something. But I think that the bigger takeaway is like, as long as they have a plan, as long as they show their plan on how they're going to reach that point, I think as an investor for me is another data point that says Tesla is on the march to 20 million per 2030. And if I look around the legacy landscape, especially, no one is even close to getting to this point from a mass manufacturing standpoint. And the way that you've sort of defined Tesla being like a Trojan horse, like a luxury car maker Trojan horse, where really internally, if they're the only EV manufacturer truly, maybe outside of BYD, some would argue, that's capable of mass scale at an affordable price with a compelling car. And in the next couple years, they should be able to achieve that if you look at their previous track record. And tomorrow will either be a step in the right direction, and it could surprise as a step in the right direction, or it could be like, oh my God, what is Tesla doing? But I highly doubt that. I feel like Tesla has shown a pretty good track record of when they lay out a plan, they're always late, but they continually move towards that plan. So it's going to be fascinating. And if you're in the comments, we will have a Q&A section towards the end. We're going to hit a couple other topics as well. But if you do have questions for us, do stick around for the end. We'll be sure to hit as many as we can. Let me sort of shift gears slightly to Elon, Twitter, some of the things that's going on. Where's your head at? Because you and I went on your channel. And I got you so worked up, and it was awesome to see. We got
That's right.
passionate Dave. It was amazing.
That's right. That's right.
People loved it. It was fascinating. How do you view that now? Do you think Elon has chilled out a little bit? Do you think there's still some complications there? Where's your head with that entire saga?
Yeah, I mean, I think um, it's kind of this natural thing where uh, sometimes Elon will push the limits, and then based upon what happens, he adjusts his behavior. And yeah, I think he's trying harder to be a bit more careful in some tweets on and how he approaches things, but yet he still, is tweeting what he wants to tweet. Um, I think, yeah, it's an interesting, I think, area or arena where Twitter is not just a technological problem, but it's a kind of social, political, cultural, nuanced problem that it's really hard to come up with a grid of how to like solve it. Um, and I think Elon, he excels engineering wise, where Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, Boring Company, they all have kind of a physics grid where you could, use to solve problems. Um, and Twitter has that angle as well, to make it a better service and add features and all this stuff. But there's also this other thing, it's a hybrid of a product in a way where it's not just an engineering thing, it's also this other monster of a product, right? And I think that is something yet to be kind of solved in a sense. It's still a work in progress. I think Elon's trying to figure that whether he'll be the one to push that kind of side forward longer term, or if he'll hand that off to a CEO who will be capable enough to handle both, let's say technological and the whole, you know, political, social, cultural, nuanced side as well. Like that's kind of, I think, perhaps the most likely scenario is that, you know, Elon focuses more on the technological side, gets the servers, gets the basic service, gets basic features, better done with Twitter. And he, by the end of the year, another CEO comes, he appoints that can continue what Elon started technologically, and also on the other side of the humanity side of Twitter can continue kind of Elon's ideals, but do it, in a an effective way too. So we'll see. I mean, I think the verdict is still out there. I wish. I mean, yeah. I hope that all this works out. Yeah.
Famous
There's a
last
lot at
words. I'm kidding.
stake. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember our discussion was quite. It was in the middle of that. There was just so much. There was so much going on. It was such a unique. If you think back to like Tesla's arc and Elon Musk's arc of the last 10, 15 years, it's just such a unique little time in history that we went through that just brought so many different variables forward that were like you were it's like you were in like a horror house, and like every time there's like a door opens and a ghost comes out, like and then you keep walking. It's like you keep getting surprised every time you take a step forward, and it's kind of like, okay, how do we navigate through this? It was it was but it wasn't necessarily that Elon was acting in a that he wasn't being Elon, is that he was being Elon in an arena where Elon hasn't in the past been vocal in, and but he approached it in a very Elon way, and I think that was quite it was just challenging to navigate through. Where I stand today, I think with that is that it does seem like, to your point, it does seem like he's learning to navigate that a little bit better. If there's one thing Elon has shown in the past, is that he has a great track record, to your point, of like adjusting. Like he knows how to adjust from an engineer. Great engineers are constantly adjusting to whatever real world data they receive, and it's very hard to receive real world data in a world of politics and psychology and how people feel, because everything's so subjective, it's not objective, so it's tougher to navigate through it. But it's cool to see that he's sort of navigating through it. I think in the end, what's in my head is like I'm trying to balance as best as I can the fact that if I think of Elon as an individual, like I want him to have as the same rights that everybody else does, right? Like I shouldn't be like, hey, don't say this or don't say that. You have an opinion, you're an individual, great. But then you're also the leader of Twitter. Like you and I talked about this, like the referee of Twitter. And this is something that we put together, this whole thing that was awesome on Twitter as well. But like, what does that mean within that context? And how do you move forward in a way so it can be as fair as humanly possible to all the players, and so that people feel like they want to play in this game, right? What if you want to call it a game?
Yeah.
And the way you outlined that, I think was a great guide, at least for me, to conceptualize this dynamic, and I think it was helpful for others as well. It's just such a fascinating time that I don't think any of us expected to be in, but
Yeah.
I guess it's par for the course for Elon. Um, Let me ask you this question before we move on to a little bit of AI. So think back to 2011, 2012 when you started those. I forget exactly when you started those mega threads for on Tesla Motors Club. Which, by the way, if you're not familiar with Dave's work and you want a time capsule of how people view Tesla back then and how they view it now, it's like a great way to go back and sort of compare the tone back then and the tone now, and you get a lot of the same similarities of, oh, it's not going to happen. Like kind of like you said, it's not going to happen. So check those out. But you had you seem to be very, very honed in on the fact that Tesla's long-term success was so big that it was not just investing in, but it was potentially generational. So now we're in 2023. Do you still have that same level of conviction? And if you do, why is it? Has anything changed since that time?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, there's a lot of things that check the boxes that Tesla's not just on the right course, but um, is in a much better place than even I would have imagined, 10 years ago. Um, one of them is going to be tomorrow, I think, where I think the level of ambition for the next generation platform is actually much higher than I would have expected. I think the level of which they're going to try to bring down costs and deliver a fantastic car is going to actually be very surprising. So that's one thing. Second thing is, yeah, full self driving is such a big market. It's like bigger than autos, than cars itself. And to understand that, you have to think about cars are cheap, actually. Like, they're just cheap in a sense of they're machines that you drive. The majority of the value in terms of cars are in the actual driving. For example, if you had a person who was going to say, I'm going to drive you everywhere you go, I'll be your chauffeur for the next 10 years, right? Um, that's worth more than the cost of the car, obviously,
Oh yeah.
like I'll drive you in traffic, I'll drive you anywhere. And so it
Well, the
shows
question
that
should be how much.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It shows that the value is not necessarily in the machine itself; it's in the driving,
Yeah.
the labor of driving, um, and so that's why autonomous vehicles. That's why FSD is a much bigger market than the hardware, right? The cars. Um, so yeah, this is going to be interesting. And then the other thing is humanoid robots. And Dojo, what Tesla's doing on the AI front. So yeah, and like they're in the I think the best spot they could be in. Lots of fantastic things going on. Um, there is this question mark, I think, moving out past 2030, and that's kind of where I like to kind of move a few steps ahead, um, because yeah, I want to see like what they're setting up ahead. And I like the next gen platform. I like FSD. I like humanoid robots, right? Um, um, but AI is changing radically, and it's changing fast, and um, it's going to be interesting how Tesla navigates kind of the whole market. One example is you've got this humanoid robot, but the other half is the software. It's like the mind of the robot. It's like um, who's going to be in the brain in terms of conversing and talking with this robot, right? Is Tesla going to develop their own, large language models that think and talk and etc., solve problems for people, or are they going to partner with a group? Who does Elon like in the field to partner with?
Mm.
To put that brain inside the,
Doesn't seem like he likes anybody right
Optimus.
now.
Yeah. Will Elon start his own, own thing, right? And I don't, to be honest, I don't know if Elon can really start it inside Tesla. He could if he wanted to, but I think you might have like there's pros and cons. If you want the best AI researchers in the world, the easiest way to get them is equity. You
Mm.
know, you basically say, hey, you get percent of the company or whatever. This is gonna be huge, and you can get the top of the top. If you bring them into Tesla, like you tell them we'll give you some equity, but the equity doesn't like it's not like big percent of the company. Tesla's market cap is so high. So you basically have to do high compensation, right? Basically high salary and then also, you know, um, stock, but it's not necessarily like as lucrative as a startup would be, right? The benefit of doing a Tesla is you could say, oh, Tesla as a company, we're willing to fork over billions of dollars in training and compute costs, right? To build this thing. But on the flip side, there's actually negative or challenges of doing a Tesla is that Tesla right now is a complicated company in the sense that as Tesla has changed and matured over time, there are a lot of institutional investors, and institutional investors own the majority of the company. Um, who aren't necessarily looking for a risky bet.
Mm.
They're like, who cares about large language models? Why are we spending billions of dollars on this? What's the point? Let's make cars, right? Tesla, you're a car company. Like, get your act together, right? Higher margins. Like, they want higher
So
margins. They
true.
don't want, the next whatever big,
So true.
thing to compete with ChatGPT. It's like, who cares, right? So in that sense too, it's like, you know, would Elon really start something in Tesla when he owns like, let's say, 20% of the company, but it's like if he could do something outside of Tesla, give more equity, recruit better people, who knows? But then you've got this funding problem, right? Meaning you have to fork over a lot for compute. And so then Elon would probably have to bankroll that, he might have to fork over, a bunch of cash, maybe $1 billion a year or whatever for this enterprise. I think he's ready to do it though. I think
Mm.
the last article by the information, I was not surprised by it at all that he's already, talking to people, trying to recruit people. Um, it makes sense, but it's kind of crazy. Like another Elon Musk company. It's like, who would have thought? Right after Twitter, too. Yeah, like just months after acquiring Twitter,
He can't stop.
he tried to do
The
another
dude
one.
can't stop.
Yeah, it's
Let me see
insane.
if I can pull this up. Actually, let
Yeah,
me put this in the private chat. Yeah, producer wife, when you get a second, if you can pull this up on screen. For those that are not
yeah.
following the Sawyer Merritt, there's a tweet from Sawyer Merritt here from Twitter that highlights Elon Musk reportedly approached artificial intelligence researchers in recent weeks about forming a new research lab to develop an alternative to ChatGPT, the high-profile chatbot made by the startup OpenAI, according to two people with direct knowledge of the effort and a third person briefed on the conversation. So, and this is in direct response to, it seems like I'm speculating here, but it seems like it's pointing this, and it might be covered in this article, that Elon's not the happiest about OpenAI being owned by Microsoft. OpenAI was designed to be its own entity, so that it was open, to try and really advocate for AI safety, and so that it was open source, so that there's no controlling interest around it that could potentially make it not democratic or potentially dangerous, and the opposite happened. And then you had Andre joining OpenAI, and then Elon unfollowed Andre. You had this whole thing. What I don't know if it's probably a bigger deal. It seems like a bigger deal than it actually is. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if you have some thoughts there, Dave. But just wanted to give some context to the people.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a done deal, or how are you
Um,
thinking about this?
yeah, I think Elon, my personal opinion is I think he will do it. And a big reason is so much has happened um, in the past few years with large language models where um, we really got to this place where these large language models like OpenAI's GPT-3 and now 4, ChatGPT, um, they're moving beyond just kind of giving facts or translating sentences. They're moving into this arena of like logic and thinking. Um, and this is the big jump that's taken place in the past a year or two. And this is why ChatGPT can write a book, can write essays and do all sorts of crazy stuff, even though it does have some deficiencies. But we have this big turning point, and it's a lot of the cutting edge researchers are feeling that AGI is not too far away, and that this is the precursor of that. And what Sam Altman of OpenAI, the CEO there, his vision is that there's only going to be a few big players providing the foundational models of AI in terms of large language models, because it's going to cost too much to train these models. So he only thinks there's going to be a few players. And he thinks OpenAI is going to be one of those players. He thinks it's obviously going to be, the leader of that. And he wants OpenAI to become this place where they hold digital intelligence on tap, meaning they are the custodians of this digital intelligence or super intelligent, whatever it is, AI in the future. And you can tap into this through APIs. So you can hook up your app, you could hook up whatever, you could do a chatbot, whatever, and you can access this AI mind, the digital intelligence, and get back whatever you need to. And Sam Altman is saying that he's willing and he's wanting multi-billion-dollar companies to be built up on this. And he's saying that OpenAI is not going to do everything. They're not going to try to do, AI, this service, this service, this service. They're actually going to let companies build on top of their foundational model, where he expects, trillion-dollar companies to be built on top of this, basically. And they'll just be the custodian of the digital intelligence in a way. And they'll let other companies build trillion-dollar businesses off of that. And Sam Altman is also saying that they'll let people customize the model to be basically biased according to what you want it biased for. So if you're a Republican, it could be like a Republican to you. If you're a Democrat, it could be like that. If you like certain things, it'd be like this to you, right? So it'll let you customize it for whoever you want to be, right? You want it to be. Now, this is all great if you believe OpenAI. If you believe that they're going to be good custodians of this, that you believe that they're going to let all these multi-trillion-dollar companies be built on it, and you believe that they're going to have this neutral model that others are going to be able to customize and toward their own thing. Now, if you're skeptical about this, if you're skeptical about OpenAI and how their motives are, their financial incentives are set up, and maybe you've worked with OpenAI in the past. Maybe you've even had a role in founding OpenAI, right? And you had I don't want to say a fallout, but you had a disagreement and you went different paths.
I wonder who you're talking about. This seems like completely,
Maybe you just don't believe, and trust all of this. But you do think that there's only going to be a few players. Perhaps only one even, or two, maybe. And you do think that whoever is a custodian of digital intelligence on tap is going to have an outsized influence on the course of history forever. Like it's going to change. It's going to be basically the most influential influence in society. Whoever is a custodian of that digital intelligence on tap. Now, if you think that, do you want to be left out of the game? Do you want to be left out of that, of influencing society like that? And if you think that this is messed up, if you think the leader is not trustworthy, and you have some insight, intuition, or feelings about this and experience, like what are your options here? What are you going to do?
Okay, let me try to conceptualize this from my stupid brain, and then you tell me if I'm thinking about this correctly. So Sam and others think that in the future, 10, 20 years, there's going to be like, I don't know, let's just say 7 brains, artificial brains that society are going to be able to plug into if either through as a company or an individual. And those brains are going to essentially solve whatever problem or offer whatever service or product through that brain. And maybe there's those 7 different brains, maybe specialize, are really good at everything, but maybe have us like maybe one of them is extremely good at solving life's, I don't know, hardest questions around how to build societies. And then there's another one that's extremely good at building, I don't know, freaking companies that make teapots. I don't freaking know, right? But whatever. This the seven different brains specialize. And each one of those brains, it's going to be owned, or they're going to be custodians. There's going to be a small number of people that will be responsible or trusted with ensuring that that brain is, I don't know, as good as possible or as fair as possible or something. And I guess that's where a lot of this might a lot of questions arise. And that's how the future is going to look. I guess. Did I somewhat
Yeah.
explain this? Yeah.
Okay, somewhat. So a few
Okay.
few kind of notes on that is not 7 brains, more like 2 or 3.
Oh
Okay.
snap. Okay.
And the reason is these brains are very, very generalized, meaning the layers you build on top of that, if you're, these supposedly the foundational models, they'll let other companies fine tune and customize the model to fit a niche, like but these models are very general, meaning they'll do everything basically
It's like rent a
for you.
brain, basically.
Exactly, exactly. It's like your brain.
Yeah.
Think of a human
Got it.
brain, general. You figure out anything eventually. Like think of it as it's a digital brain, right? Um,
Okay.
but think of the power of this digital brain as like you're tapping into like 10 trillion brains, you know,
Mm.
that are generalized, and you could ask it to do whatever you want it to do, right? And there are only a few players, 2 or 3 of these brains, and the reason why is because if you have this generalized brain, and if you don't have a brain that's comparable to that, you have no you can't compete with it because it's just so good at so many things. It's like so good at let's say a million things. It's like crazy. If you're only good at like 100 things, like why would anyone use your brain when the other brain is good at everything and even better
Mm.
than your brain? And so you have to be as good, but in order to be as good as that brain across a million things, you have to have as much training and compute power to train that as that brain, which is it's going to be hard for people to do in the future. And so yeah, 2 or 3 brains, and it's not 10 or 20 years down the road. We're talking about much, 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 much sooner.
Oh boy.
I mean, we're talking about like, yeah, I mean,
This
people don't
decade?
want to pinpoint the time because it's always shifting and there could be problems and challenges. But um, yeah, we're talking about much, much sooner than that. Um, yeah, we're talking about this decade's, timeline type of stuff.
So here's what comes up to my brain.
Mhm.
What that was the worst joke of all time, but I said it anyway. What if Sam's brain that he built with other people becomes the most powerful brain, and it becomes like, even if it's one of the 2 or 3 players, right?
Yeah.
What's stopping those in like individuals from becoming by far the most powerful people on planet Earth? Is that the right way of thinking about it? Because essentially they're
Yeah.
controlling this thing that everybody's going to depend on. Am I thinking about that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. It is the most craziest. Um, it's beyond normal business because normal business you offer a product or service, you get you sell something, you have warranty service, something breaks, you fix it, you sell a new
Yeah.
product. It's like pretty straightforward, right? But we're talking
Costco.
about and we're talking about like a digital intelligence on tap, where the digital intelligence is eventually 1,000, a million, a trillion times more than all of the human intelligence on Earth, right? It's just like crazy intelligence. Like it's going to be able to do things that we can't fathom right now. And for example, with my kids, like, do I want it to? It whatever it says and it does and it teaches, it has a world view and it has values, it has perspective, but it's going to be super convincing too. Like it's going to be like crazy. And the whoever controls that foundational model of that brain is going to control the worldview of billions of people, of how they think, right? And the the idea right now is like, oh, we're gonna make a neutral as neutral brain as possible, right? We're going to try to make it just something that's harmless, and you can customize it to make it just like whatever you want it to be, right? We'll stay out of that. That's the the company advertising there. But is that even possible?
Right.
Can anything really be that neutral, right? And already, if you look at what's going on with alignment, so you've got this ChatGPT and you've got this Bing chatbot who goes crazy, and so now they're having to do this thing called alignment, where you're trying to like
Stop it from like derailing.
exactly, like put reins on this crazy monster or whatever.
What could go wrong?
Exactly. But all this alignment you're doing is like you're basically feeding it, instruction, like telling what to do or what not to do. You're basically, I don't say scolding a child, but you're teaching this. And all of that is like, who's doing that? What are the values you're doing it with? What's the worldview you're doing? How are you shaping this, right? Because this is going to have a crazy outsized, impact in the future. Yeah.
Man. It's like all those concerns around AI safety that Elon brought up, say for whenever, 5 years ago when he went on Joe Rogan and before he got high or he smoked weed. I don't even know he got high, but say before he smoked weed and he's freaking Joe out about AI becoming this existential threat. Okay, so I'm not going to say it's necessarily going to be bad. So maybe I'll ask you this question. So given that, so maybe I'll ask about the potentials first, and then I'll ask you the next question. So obviously we've explored just the tip of the iceberg of the complexities that arise from having a technology like this in the near future that is going to be held by developed and it's going to have a number of people that are the custodians over this incredibly just mind-blowingly powerful technology that is potentially super, super dangerous in a way, quote unquote. But at the same time, it's also going to allow us to do so much more as a society for a fraction of the cost one would think. Because now you have, instead of hiring a team of 100 incredibly smart engineers and idea folks or whatever that are trying to develop and plan a process for you, let's say to start, you rent a brain for 10 minutes and then you get a whole like top to bottom 150 page step by step thing that tells you exactly what you need to do in order to be the most successful company in the world, one would think, right? I'm just conceptualizing this. So talk to me about some of the like the flip side. What are the best things that could come out of this potentially? What are some things that are going to be disrupted in the next, say, in this decade that perhaps we're not thinking about, and how AI will impact that in a positive way?
Yeah. Yeah. So I see it's a tough thing, because most people, it's like when you're dealing with things that have such strong, let's say, two sides of the coin and opposites, it's hard for a lot of people to bring this all together and converge them into one thought. And a lot of times people tend to just go on one side or the other,
Yeah.
100% positive or 100% negative. The way I look at it is, yeah, we're entering definitely into some crazy territory, where, yeah, I don't know if generally people are understanding this idea that for the first time in history, AI or computers or software has gotten to the point where it can make, stories, essays, photos, now music actually, and music will be something within the next 12 to 18 months. But all this stuff is AI is getting better than the typical human at making. And it's only time before all this stuff where, yeah, AI is better at doing, most intellectual things. And it just gets better and better over time as because compute's not shrinking, right? Data isn't shrinking. All this stuff is just, we're in the infancy stages of all this. If you look at ChatGPT, imagine ChatGPT as being like a baby, like an infant. This is like top of the first inning for AI. It's almost nothing compared to the compute power we're going to have in 5, 10, 20 years. It's like crazy. So yeah, we're dealing with a lot of uncharted territories, a lot of potential risks and challenges. On the positive side, I think there's a potential where AI is not going to all of a sudden in one moment be able to solve all of our problems. It's going to allow people, companies, entrepreneurs to use its capabilities to combine them with other parts that it's lacking, to create new products and services that have never been possible before in the history of the world, that create immense value for people. And as it does that, it's going to, it has potential of radically improving people's lives, radically educating people, giving them skills and opportunities, radically, bringing people together in different ways. It, it has tremendous potential to improve lives more so than any other technology in the history of the world, but even quicker. Because most technological revolutions, they take a while. Even the internet's taken a while, computers, all this stuff. But the AI revolution is happening. It's like more, not in the sense of decades, like every few months,
The
AI is
infrastructure's
just
there already.
radically, yeah, everything's there. It's just radically improving so fast every few
Whoa.
months. And so you've got this interesting opportunity where we could leverage AI to create and solve the biggest problems we have, and to create a better world, more value. And in that process, we need to work on figuring out how to tame the beast, basically how to make sure this thing doesn't get out of control and be used against us. Now, my big concern is that throughout history, humans have discovered many solutions and cures to many things, but have humans really figured out the cure to kind of like this human condition? Are we really less, you know, I guess it, it's like the condition of the human kind of heart, I would say, like that is something that I don't know if we've really made much progress over time. And that concerns me is, yeah, give people a lot of power, a lot of free time, a lot of, what are they going to do? Are they going to be super productive, or are they going to be on
Right.
TikTok or whatever the next generation is? And like, give people power of becoming, of moving together. Do they become mobs, and like just do crazy stuff in terms of like canceling left and right, or do they do good together? Right. That's the bigger
Right.
question. And that's kind of the concerning thing, I think. But yeah, while we have time, I look at it as maximize what you could do with AI for good. And yeah, if you're lucky and you have a business that does well, and use those resources to make sure the future is good, the AI is used well.
So you said while we have time. Okay. So are you more optimistic or pessimistic on this whole thing? Because I remember this was the one of the questions I asked you when you first came on my channel. You were my very first interview, by the way, that people
Yeah.
that follow this channel. Dave was my very first interview on this channel back in 2021. He was so gracious to give his time. And one of the first question I asked him was, as a parent, about given all we know now, and it was like during COVID and the crazy division and stuff. I asked him, are you more optimistic or pessimistic about the future? And now, almost a year and a half later, we have this whole AI thing going on. So let me ask you this question again: are you more optimistic or pessimistic about the future, given all you know now?
Yeah. I look at it more as like, um, when I look at, yeah, I have to be more optimistic, because if I am more pessimistic, I can't take action. I can't do things productive. So I'm more optimistic. That leads me to action, to do things. Um, but I do have serious concerns, that, yeah, things could get pretty intense. Um, and I want to work toward mitigating those concerns over time. But I'm not ready to become pessimistic, because those concerns are more longer term and can possibly be mitigated. Like, I don't know the future, and I can't assume and be so super confident that I know the future to be so pessimistic that I'm sure that these outcomes are the most likely outcomes, right? And that's where I feel like the only thing I can control right now is what I'm doing today, and
Mm.
how I'm spending my time. And that requires me to be optimistic, to use whatever is available for the best I can. right? And so that's kind of my perspective. Is I'm super optimistic at the possibilities of AI to change people's lives. For me, education is huge because, um, yeah, I think AI, I think it's the real deal, and I think it's going to completely radically transform how people learn and do things. And yeah, that's going to change people's lives. So
Okay.
yeah.
That's a great answer. One more question and a little bit of Q&A. Is that okay with you on
Yeah, yeah,
time? I just
yeah.
want to make sure.
Actually,
Okay.
feel free to go until like another 30 minutes if you need to. Yeah, it's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, that's all. I appreciate that very much. Yeah. Um, so then let me ask you this. On the topic of being optimistic, um, so is this app that you're working on with the sort of it's a language, and maybe give us a little bit more context into exactly what the app is meant to do. But is that is that one of the ways that you're trying to maximize the chances that the people that are out there that could potentially help us arrive to a really good solution have the tools to get there? Is that sort of the motivation behind the creation of the app?
Yeah. So um, yeah, it's interesting because I've been working on like I've had a app company where we've developed our own apps. It's mostly um, one kind of main app we have, but um, there hasn't been something that's been super compelling for me to really work on the past several years in terms of software. Um, and this kind of whole AI, um, ChatGPT, and the awakening kind of these large language models. For the first time in many many years, it's brought this like maker mentality back into me, where I'm like, oh my
Mm,
gosh, like this is bigger than the App Store by many orders of magnitude. Like the App Store opportunity was huge, and I was like mesmerized by that back in the day. But this AI opportunity is so much bigger. It's just like so crazy. And there are some advantages of being early, meaning trying stuff that you don't know what you're doing, but you just do it. Like, and that's kind of our first app in 2008. We were just it was like throwing a dart on a dartboard and just like seeing if anything sticks, right? And it's not so much like, oh, do you have a great idea, or do you have great experience? It's just more of who's going to throw the dart. Like most
mm,
people don't want to throw the dart, or they're like, why do I throw the dart? Or I don't have dart experience. So there's so many questions, right? But it's like for me, it's like just throw the dart. That's all it takes,
yeah,
just
yeah.
try to throw it. Like, and so with AI, that's how I kind of take it. It's like, don't overthink it for me. I'm just like, I just gotta throw the dart, and
Mm,
um, see if I could do something that can use AI for good. So yeah, education is interesting because I think in 20, 30 years, I think education is still going to be important. It's still going to be a area where we're going to improve in, even with AGI, even with potential super intelligence, whatever. I still think, yeah, education is one of those places where it's a long-term issue, and it has a huge impact on so many people across. It's a universal need, um, and so yeah, if we can radically improve that. For me, a lot of it is more personal, where I see a lot of just I'm in daily contact with a lot of refugees that don't have any rights, don't have jobs, don't have work, and they don't have English either, and they have nothing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I can't even suggest an app for them to use because a lot of the apps out there don't even have their language. Like they can't learn English because
well,
they don't like Duolingo or others don't even offer their language to,
well,
learn English in. Um, and so, yeah, I see that very close at hand. And I'm like, AI could do a better job, I think, at teaching language than most solutions out there. And so, yeah, I figure worth a try. Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, that's awesome. So it's like that's interesting. You just so literally there's and it's this makes so much sense. There's because what is it like 2 billion people in the world basically have nothing. I think it is. What's the this like a crazy amount of people, like human beings that exist on planet Earth that could be not only living incredibly fruitful lives, but also just create incredible things for society, and they literally can't. They just can't. They're almost trapped, and this is 100% based on luck, on where you're born. You just happen to be born there. Okay, too bad. Like it's insane. It's so sad to think about, and I feel like having any sort of tools that allow those people to come forward is going to be extremely powerful. And so, are you envisioning this somehow is tied to internet everywhere through Starlink or whatever other means, so that people have access to these tools to be able to learn the language, education? Like, is that how you see this thing playing out over time? And so that it just kind of permeates all of global society, and everybody has access to tools to be able to enter really the world for the first time. Is that how you're thinking about it long term?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I want to try to pilot this year, hopefully sooner than later, is provide. We're talking about the most kind of toughest people in the toughest of situations, but like give them an amazing free program or app that's better than anything out there to learn language or English, and then to hook them up with internet and a device,
Sick.
and to pilot a program, um, hopefully partnering with a nonprofit who will oversee kind of the distribution of the device and the kind of the accountability and the tracking of progress. So yeah, I actually want to try this out. It might be actually, we'll see, sooner than later, but and
Mhm.
actually see what happens, in the lives of the kids who do this and the adults who do it, how quickly they pick up the language, what other things it leads to, like how fast it connects them to resources and tools and and opportunities, right? I mean, everything is will flow through the internet, and they're they're going to be, yeah, like if you're fluent in English, um, you can find work, online somewhere. You know, if you're fluent in English and hungry, you can learn almost anything too. You know, um,
Mm.
you can meet people. You could, there's a lot of stuff you could do. But if you don't have, language, you don't have the internet, you don't have access, you're stuck in your closed box, and that's where the world's most you know biggest poverty lies, right? It's in that closed box. So we'll see. I don't have like I'm trying to not get ahead of myself, where I'm just I just want to focus on my day today and what I could do to improve the language learning experience and see how far I could go. But yeah, and I want to be, in a sense, I'm confident that I think, um, I'm excited about the opportunities and I'm excited what we're doing, but I'm also wanting to be humble that there are multi-billion-dollar companies in this space, and it's going to take a lot to compete against them. I mean, yeah, there's some big players.
Yeah, but Dave, you could be the Tesla to legacy auto, bro. Come on. Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but it just, to me, it seems like, again, it seems like my generation. So I'm a millennial. I was born in 87. I was kind of born into the internet. Like, I remember one of my earliest memories as a kid was playing with a computer, and then like a year or two later it was hooked up to the internet. So I kind of grew up with the internet. And so this AI revolution, like this AI thing, that's, I guess, revolution, whatever you want to call it, it seems like my generation's internet, where
Mhm.
this thing came along that just completely transformed society. Like, within 20 years, but that, to me, within the scale of society, is like that. And then all of a sudden you have everybody that has electricity and a semblance of a economy has the internet. And now everybody can talk to each other, and a ridiculous amount of value was created globally. And the thing that you mentioned in this interview today that hadn't clicked for me before, but it clicked now, is that within the case of AI, you don't need you don't need uh, Ethernet to be laid across the entire globe. You don't need these sort of different I don't know, infrastructure type things that you have to build out, that's hardware specific, that you're able to do more throughput. In the case of AI, you do, but it's centralized almost. It's like centralized around two or three players, and you just rent that thing, but that thing is knowledge and capability at superhuman levels, to the point that is, it doesn't matter how many people you stick in a room with the incredible knowledge, that thing will do it perfectly in seconds versus you hiring 100 people, sticking them in the room for 2 weeks, and hopefully you get something that's perfect. And we all know that's not going to be the case. That to me seems insane. It seems completely nuts. I don't even know how to wrap my head around it. And we have Bing, we have ChatGPT, and I can already start to feel like I use them for my YouTube videos. I use them as a research tool instead of spending 45 minutes to an hour Googling all these things. I do have like 5 prompts. I throw them into the things. I double check my work because sometimes it's incorrect, but I do double check my work. And then that saved me 80, 90% of my time. Just extrapolate that out into the future, and it's the potential is limitless. So man, I don't know, man. It's just
Yeah.
it seems scary. It seems scary, but it seems amazing at the same time. And I think that's when innovation truly takes off, is when those two things come together, I feel like, because that's where all the potential lies. Okay.
Yeah.
Should we do some Q&A, Dave?
Yeah. Let's go for it.
Yeah. All right. So, producer wife, go ahead and pull up the questions for us. Thank you all so much for sticking around. We'll answer as many questions as we can. We'll be on for another, say, 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll sign off. Okay. Let's go ahead and bring them up, and we'll start with the first question. From Darby, who are you most excited to see talk to at the bar? Dave, who are you most excited to see or talk to at the bar at Clive?
Um, I'm not sure. I think it'd be good just to catch up with people that have met before or seen before. Um, yeah, looking forward to to hanging out with Rob and seeing if some old timers like Gally and others might be there. And and I love to just actually chat with just folks that just are who who have a connection with me through my videos. Like I actually, when I meet people, I feel like I'm close to them, like I know them too. Like
Yeah.
there's some reciprocal like feeling that goes out, when someone who connects with me has kind of met me and known me through my videos. And so yeah, it's awesome. I'd love to meet as many people as possible.
It's so fascinating you say that, because that was I talk to my wife about this all the time. Is like whenever I had the chance to go to these events, is like I feel like I feel like I know you. Like
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
going? It's the weirdest thing, and it's like it's amazing how things how things can bring people together, and that like you're like my brother. It's just so weird. It's fascinating. Let's do the next question. So cool. Da-da-da-da. Buck, thank you so much for the super chat. That will go into Dave's beer fund for tomorrow. I'm going to buy him. Let's see how many beers we're going to buy Dave. Do you think the robo platform will have trunk seats frunk format, or will it reposition seats to the rear to maximize luggage space for four? How do you think about the form factor?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because if it's purely robotaxi, which it could be, then they could have seats in any way, it wants. But if the human has to drive it, then you kind of need seats in a certain way, like the front seats have to be forward facing, etc. So yeah, I don't know. I think we'll just it's so close. We're so close to the event. I just feel like we just need to wait. And I don't even know if they'll show the design tomorrow, I think the bigger focus is on the more the back end infrastructure, but we'll see.
Yeah. Uh, I kind of on the same page, but if they do show the car, I do think it'll be like a small frunk, 2 seat plus two in the back. That might be kind of useless ish. Maybe a trunk that's okay size, but there has to be differentiation between the compact and the three and the Y. So we'll see. Next question. Ba-ba-da-da. Crest question: how many years until the factories need zero humans to build the cars? 5? I don't know about that, but I think a lot more than that. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I think it's like more like 20.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just because there's all these edge kind of tasks that are gonna require humans, I think. Like humanoids will gradually get involved with assembly and different stuff, but you're always gonna need humans to oversee stuff, I think. I mean, not always, but in the next 10 to 20 years, I think you get yeah, these humanoid robots will need oversight and there's tasks here and there until like maybe until you do get real, not just AGI, but something beyond AGI that's able to do stuff better than humans, then maybe you don't. But yeah, I don't know.
Do you think by then they'll have Tesla bot helping out within 5 years, doing something?
Yeah, I think they'll have Tesla bot doing something within a year, like
Yeah,
just even not a lot of quantity, just some Tesla bots doing something. Yeah, I think but the question is like how much will they be doing and how many of the robots will they be deploying? And yeah, we'll see about that.
got it. Next one. Ba-ba-da-da. Robert, question. What do you think of Wyoming's insane proposal to ban the sale of electric vehicles by 2035? What? I didn't even know
Yeah,
this was a thing. Have you heard of that?
I'll pass. I'll pass on. I don't know. Yeah.
What? Wyoming banned electric cars. No way. Yeah, I'm looking it up. Oh, yeah. So USA Today article. Here, let me put it in the private chat. If you want to bring this up, producer wife, we'll look at it together. Wyoming lawmakers push for electric car ban and to limit sales by 2035. This was published January 17th of 2023. Scroll down for us a little bit, and then just real quick, we can look at this together. Oh, look, Nissan recalls some cars. Is the article coming up there? Yeah, so let's see. Wyoming's vast stretches of highway coupled with lack of electric vehicle charging infrastructure make the widespread use of electric vehicles impracticable for the state. And so thus we should ban them. Okay.
I think it's a non-issue. There's all
Yeah,
these bills or people who want to propose bills, crazy bills. It's crazy stuff. It's not going to pass, I don't think, and
yeah,
nothing to worry about, in my opinion.
yeah,
Yeah,
same. Just weird. It's just,
yeah,
lobby groups just trying to protect their interests. I
yeah.
think it's really what's going on here. Okay. Thank you for pulling that up. Let's do the next question. Ba-ba-da-da. And TNLE question. Why is Elon still so concerned with the current small population decline negatively affecting future labor supply if he's confident bots will be doing majority of that labor within 20 years? How do you think about this question?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, because typically, if you have such a, let's say, outsized elderly population, you don't have people to take care of the elderly population, and there's no like desire. Like everyone's just supporting, the elderly population. They're not building stuff and doing stuff, right? You have a really messed up future there. But yeah, if humanoid robots are taking care of elderly, and you do have really capable, digital intelligence inside the humanoid robots. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think Elon tends to think more many, many hundreds of years or even thousands of years. What will happen if the trend continues? Thus, we need to change the trend. But yeah, interesting question.
Yeah. Um, I think it's more just I think maybe Elon just really loves humanity and he doesn't, he's talked about he doesn't want humanity to go out uh like in diapers in a whimper or something over time. So it's just maybe his love for humanity where he just wants people to be around and perhaps in his head he has a vision for people still being able to do things, but we'll see. It's concerning regardless, but we'll see how we navigate through it. Let's do the next one. Ba-ba-da-da. And Jay Lizard. Question. Can Dave interview Leo Kogwan again? Kogwan Leo.
Hmm,
That's
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
I wonder why he would ask that question. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'd be open to it. Yeah, I like I love just interviewing people, different perspectives. I learn a lot always. And it's great to just yeah, be exposed to different points of view. So yeah, I'm open to it for sure.
Have you been following that saga between Kogwan and Elon on Twitter? All that stuff?
Not too much. Like I kind of stay away from yeah, it's like it's
Smart.
unfortunate. Yeah, I kind of stay away from this stuff because I don't want to use too many like brain cells on stuff that I can't like change or be productive with.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Smart man. You know what my wife's going to say once I jump off? Listen to Dave. Stop being on Twitter for so long. Guaranteed. I could learn a lesson from that big time. I appreciate that answer. Let's do a few more. Next question. Tom, shout out Tom Nash. Tell Dave I bought the overpriced chair and Sony lens because of him and I love it.
Nice,
Sounds
nice.
like you give him some recommendations.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you,
Tom.
Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the man. We actually him and I started the podcast together every Thursday at
Oh, really?
1 or 2 o'clock. Yeah, so we just
Okay.
chat about whatever. Yeah.
Cool.
It's called The Brink. We have no idea what we're doing. We're just doing it for
Cool.
fun. We'll see what happens. We'll see how quickly we get demonetized. Let's do a couple more. Brad, question. How do you think Master Plan 3 connects Tesla to SpaceX and the Boring Company? Could it be via the Tesla bot? This is interesting because I think Elon in a comment offhand said that it would involve all three entities. Do you think that's still the case?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking maybe Boring Company with mining, that might be interesting. SpaceX, I don't know, internet somehow to either to cars or some other need for internet that maybe, I don't know. But those two seems the most like if there is crossover, if they're referred to in the master plan, like Boring Company's specialty is digging, and tunneling, and SpaceX's specialty is launching stuff in space and instant and basically satellite constellation internet. So if there's some crossover, it might be between those areas somehow.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's do the next one. Next question. Ba-ba-da-da. Crest. How likely is it that we will see a new CEO compensation package tomorrow? It is very relevant to investors. That's a fascinating question. I have some thoughts about this. What
Yeah, I don't think we'll see it tomorrow. It's not the right venue. Like that's like basically what happens with these CEO compensation plans is the board will draft something, you know,
mm,
and then they'll have like an announcement, release the plan, and then have a vote, right? A shareholder vote at the annual meeting. So this is not the forum to release a compensation package, in my opinion.
you think he'll get one this year though, right? Because I think he hit all the tranches for the previous one. No?
Yeah, I mean, he did. Yeah, he's definitely hit all the tranches. It's possible. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, definitely
Okay.
possible.
Yeah. All right. Let's do two more. Let's do the next one. Eli, what if GM did not crush their EV1? Would there be a Tesla today?
Yeah, I think the question is also like if there was, yeah, actually, if GM was a bit more competent of a company, meaning they actually cared more for their vehicles and they had a priority for EVs and they didn't crush their EVs, then I don't think, yeah, I don't know if Elon would have taken those steps, the radical risks and steps he needed to take to establish and to grow Tesla. But I think it's a combination of not just like a lack of interest in EVs, but like just it's not just a lack of interest, but a willful kind of rejection of it, and like this incompetence of just wanting the status quo. Like these cars are generally like they're not improving that much over 20 years. It's just like similar. So you've got this incompetence, like this. I don't know. It's like a oligarchy of an industry where you're just trying to preserve what you have, and then you're willfully, rejecting the future of sustainable energy. That all of that combined is, I think, what allowed Elon to take the risks that he needed to. Yeah.
If you're not familiar with the backstory of this question, for those of you that are watching, there's a documentary called "Who Killed the Electric Car." I think it's on Netflix. I forget exactly where it airs. It gives you some context and insight into why this question comes up. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it too much if you haven't seen it yet. It's a fascinating story. All right, let's do the last question, and then we'll go to some closing thoughts. Thank you, David. Question: will Tesla make a commercial Sprinter van based on Cybertruck platform like the 3Y Share? There's been like a lot of speculation about this, a larger SUV like a Tahoe style. Where's your head at with this?
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to see a Sprinter van type of van soon, maybe within a year announcement. Will it be based on the Cybertruck platform? Possibly, maybe similar chassis. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's definitely possible to be based on that platform. In terms of, yeah, I'm really curious, like how far Tesla is going to be able to take the folding steel um, approach. Like how many different types of vehicles and what advantages are they going to really realize? In terms of costs or you know capex or efficiencies. Like, this is going to be interesting. So I think, yeah, the Cybertruck ramp is gonna show a lot of interesting stuff.
Awesome. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody who asked the question. Dave, I really appreciate you, man. You've been so gracious with your time. Always great chatting with you. We'll see you tomorrow at Clive. For those of you that maybe caught us a little bit later, we're having a all-day event at Clive Bar in downtown Austin. Doors open at 2:00. I'll be doing a pre-show. We'll be live streaming the Investor Day, the entirety of it, to the bar. We'll do a post-discussion as well. And then we'll have Dave, Rob, Sandy, Dan Ives, Sam Kors from ARC, and Pierre Farragut from New Street. Dan Ives is from Wedbush. Around 8:00 Central, we'll do a main panel. And all of this will also be live streamed to this channel. So in case you can't make it to Austin, you'll be able to watch this on this channel as well. So any closing thoughts, Dave, before we go tomorrow and meet a bunch of wonderful people?
Yeah. No, if you're coming to Austin, yeah, welcome to the city, and we hope to meet you in person. Shout out to your producer wife; she does a fantastic job.
Yes.
Yes, a great job. And yeah, let's do it again.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much again. Thank you, everybody in the comments. Thank you, Mod, so much for keeping the conversation super healthy in the comments, as always. Again, thank you again, Dave, for making the time. And producer wife, as always, great job. Thank you so much. And there's her clapping. Perfect. Look at how high-tech we are. We'll see you tomorrow, guys. Thank you all so much. Have a great one. We'll see you around. Take it easy, everybody.